your D&D character. I don't want to draw your night elf warrior. I don't want to do it.
Hello, I'm Dustin. I'm an illustrator. I made $240,000 as an artist in 2022.
If I'm being honest, this is going to be super hard.
I wanted to make this video for one big reason. I see a lot of fellow artists struggling to find work and feeling reliant on studios or third-party companies to hire them. And I wanted to highlight that there are so many avenues available to emerging artists these days within the independent art space. The ability to thrive as an artist is more viable than it was even a few years ago. So that's really what this video is about. And also, not all of these require large online followings. Spoiler alert, that's the graph. If you're interested in a specific section, feel free to skip to the chapter marked down below. Just keep in mind that I am a US-based artist, so all my experiences kind of come from within the States, as I know the art market can be a little different depending on where you live. As you could see in the breakdown, I make the majority of my money from cons by selling prints. I rarely sell physical paintings or sketches, as I work mostly digital. So a majority of my costs come from conventions. Almost 100% of my travel expenses is directly related to cons. Obviously, if you have local shows, that's a great way to start doing cons and kind of breaking into that space. It's also much more cost effective when you can just drive down the street and go to a show. So my worst show in 2022, I made $3.5K, and my best show, I made $18K. So that's a big difference. So we averaged around 7 to 8K. I think my average in 2019 was about 2K a show. So really happy with that 8K average a show. My second largest source of income was online sales. I primarily use Etsy. So in 2022, I made $66,000 before expenses. So there's still fees and shipping that kind of take away from that. So if we take a look at the analytics, we can see that Etsy is saying that it's bringing in 66% of the visits to my online shop, and I'm bringing in about 34 from direct traffic and social media.
Believe it!
Now, I think Etsy inflates these numbers a bit. I think it's closer to about 50-50, as if you navigate to a different web page and then come back, Etsy reads that as a visit from them. However, I do think that Etsy is a great platform for unknown and beginning artists because of that search feature that they have and so much traffic they do generate through their platform, where if you have a Shopify or something else, you're really reliant on kind of your own traffic. And then you can always transition to a personal shop at a later time, as Etsy does have higher fees than Squarespace and Shopify and some of the other options out there. So that is something, once you've kind of gathered that following, you can think about. Something I wanted to make sure to mention was teaching, as it does contribute to a small percentage of my income through the year. I made about $7,400 in 2022 teaching 2 classes at my local art college. However, I do know some artists will teach their own private courses online, and they can get that number way higher. So if you're passionate about teaching, I wanted to make sure to include that on this list. I know freelance is 100% of a lot of artists' entire income for the year, but for me, I only took on 2 projects, equaling to about $4,000. I was super picky about the freelance work I took. Obviously, the more money I've been able to make through my own personal work, the less I kind of want to take on other people's projects. So I find myself taking on less freelance work unless I'm really excited about the project.
Daryl, goodbye. No more. I don't want to draw your D&D character. I don't want to draw your night elf warrior. I don't want to do it. I'm sure she's beautiful. I'm sure she's super cool. But to be fair, totally legitimate path of income. They're just not for me. I drew one too many night elf warriors. No, thank you.
No! God, please, no! No!
Okay, so the next category is wholesale / gallery representation. This is an interesting one that's kind of new to me, but I really want to explore more. It's passive income. I know online sales is kind of passive income, but this is super passive, and I like being a lazy piece of shit. I tell you what, I like it a lot. So I have a number of galleries where I will send them my product, and then they will sell it for me. Whether there's like a 40/60 cut, or if they just buy everything up front for like a wholesale price. So it just depends on the gallery. And I made 4,600 doing that, and it was like just a nice little check that I didn't think about every month. So that was super cool. Love that.
Wholesale gallery representation type of things.
Kickstarter. I ran a Kickstarter. I ran my first Kickstarter. It's about fish bags. It's over. You can't back it, but I don't know why I'm pitching it. Anywho, so Kickstarter. Here it is. Whoop. That's it. So the Kickstarter brought in about 25,000. The exact numbers on the screen, I don't know. Half of that went to my partner who helped, we collab. It was a collab. It's not all. So I made about 12.5K through Kickstarter this year. Kickstarters are cool, I guess. They're a lot of work. It's not the focus of we're moving on. Okay. I didn't make anything because I didn't post anything. I'm posting right now. That's this. However, so YouTube, zero monies. I'm not cool like the other YouTubers. They don't like, I don't know. Reels, however, I made about $800 throughout the year on Reels, which is, Instagram's like version of like they're pretending to be TikTok and trying to pay people to incentivize them not to leave their platform, I guess. So I know there's a lot of like bigger accounts that haven't even been offered like the Reels bonuses program, which is weird. And then there's like a lot of smaller accounts that do have it. And then some people make a lot more than other ones. And I'm not really sure how the system works. It's kind of very vague. But if you have that option, it's a great one for just, a little extra cash on the side. Especially if you're already doing video content. So
check your Instagram if you've got that option, I guess, or whatever.
Digital products. I know a lot of people have asked me about digital products like brush sets, stuff like that. There's plenty of great ones out there. I know a lot of creators who make a decent amount of money through those. However, I'm a default brush boy. I'm lazy. I don't have no digital products. So that's zero for me, but I wanted to make sure that it was on this list just in case that was something you were thinking about. Think about that if you want or don't. I don't know. I didn't think about it. I didn't do it. I don't know. Okay, let's keep going. $240,000 is a lot of money. I'm very aware of that. I feel very privileged to be in the position I am. However, there was a lot of costs involved in this year, so that's definitely not what I brought home. It's still about double what I made in 2021.
What did it cost?
Everything.
I want to go through all the expenses I had and just give you a really realistic number of what I actually brought home. So the first one is because I did 24 conventions. So hotels, gas, parking, Uber, travel costs. That's what this number is in total. So I spent $21,000.11 on travel costs in 2022. Okay, next thing that is a travel cost, but I didn't add it to the travel cost total. I don't know why. Car repairs. So there was a couple times that I had to bring my car into the shop. Obviously, we need it for conventions. We haul all of our booth setups and stuff like that, products. So that was $8,095 in total in 2022. Hopefully that won't be an expense that I have every year, but this year it was kind of unavoidable. So, okay. My biggest expense by far, also another very unavoidable one, was production costs, product costs. So all the prints, all the paper, all the supplies, stuff like that. Enamel pins, getting those produced, anything that I sell. It was $42,542 and probably some cents. So that was a lot. So this is mostly mailing boxes. I think 80% of this number is mailing boxes, and then like the rest is like tape and like anything that kind of went into like mailing, or like I think there might be some Sharpies in there for like signing prints. So $9,594.
My attic looks like a bunch of boxes are up there. Just a bunch of boxes in my attic. That's most people's attics. I don't know. Next category.
Booth costs. Booth costs have gotten so out of hand in the last couple years. They used to be anywhere from like 150 to 300 at like the really high end. In the last like couple years, it's gone from like that to 250 to like $900. It's insane. And I would say it's averaging around like 450. So even at like some smaller shows, which I think really hurts the entry level of a lot of conventions. So I spent $9,943 on just booth fees. Okay, these next two are specifically Etsy oriented or like online sales. So shipping costs, this is just what I paid USPS to ship the products. So not only was there that crazy box fee, and supply fee, but now we have to actually pay the shipping fee. So for shipping through Etsy, I spent $6,461.53 just giving that to USPS. And then Etsy's fees, which have gone up this last year. So that's just their cut, $6,776.04. That's a lot of money just to hand to Etsy, but there's the next category. So the next category is more fees. So we've got Square, which is the like physical application for taking in-person sales. It's also called point of sale. So they have like a 1.5% fee for anything you bring in, which isn't too bad. So over the course of 2022, I paid $3,265.41 in fees. So ads. In 2022, I did spend a little bit of money trying out ads. I think I ran some ads for the Kickstarter. I think I tried out some Instagram ads. I would say they weren't all that successful. I also tried the Etsy ads, which did pay for themselves, but just barely. So I don't know if it was worth it. So this was kind of an experimental test. I spent $1,272 on ads. In 2022, one of my biggest expenses was assistance. I spent $24,832 on extra help. So this involved a couple things. Because I was gone so much, I needed people to help pack and ship orders. I also needed assistance essentially at my booth at some of the bigger shows, just making sure that I got a lunch break, that I was being, healthier than I probably would be without them there, and just like helping me, watch the booth if I was hosting a panel, fill orders and talk to customers and that type of thing. So $24,832 well spent.
Coming to the door like a hero!
So in total, all my essential costs pretty much added up were $133,791.98. So more than half of what I made.
Hey! Wake up! Hey! Thought we lost you there!
Was just expenses, and this isn't even like covering rent, any like fun time, went a little concert on the side. Like this is all mandatory expenses. I guess I didn't need to hire an assistant, but I needed to hire an assistant. So I mean, there are definitely things like I could have probably stayed at a couple cheaper hotels, but we weren't like at 5-star luxury hotels either. So this definitely was, I think, reasonable costs. So essentially my profit margins were about 100,000, a little bit more than 100,000 this year. However, I also paid about 65,000 in student loans this year. So really I only brought home about 45,000. So that's everything that I paid my rent, that I lived off of. So although I made a really decent amount of money in 2022,
It didn't really feel as good as it looks.
So just something to kind of keep in mind, that there are a lot of costs involved when you're running your own business. Although cons are one of my biggest expenses, I think it's one of the best options if you don't have a built-in audience. I know a lot of popular and unknown artists who do the same numbers at shows. They, if your work looks good, if you're presenting yourself well, people will come to your booth at these shows. The convention has the built-in audience that you don't necessarily need to bring. I've seen unknown artists make, tens of thousands of dollars in a weekend versus like very popular artists who, might do the same or even worse. So I think it's a great way if you're just emerging and you don't have that social media presence or you don't have that client list to kind of still succeed in this space. So I think conventions are a great way to kind of enter the art world. It's also where I met a lot of art directors. They come to my table. I'm a shy person and I don't know how to like blind email people, but at shows, if the art director is there and they like your work, they come to you. So that's a lot of times how I've been offered like freelance work, is through going to these shows. So even when I wasn't very well known online or wasn't, maybe the best artist, I still got, commission requests and, smaller freelance work offers through conventions. So definitely, I think one of the best options for emerging artists who might be struggling finding work elsewhere, especially if you are doing good work and maybe your work is niche and it doesn't really fit into, a lot of commercial spaces or like art industries or animation or something like that. Conventions is a great option to think about. Conventions were the first place where I started growing my online following. I would go to these shows and people would like my work and then they would follow me. So I actually started conventions before I had an online following, and that's kind of how I started growing it. Conventions will lead into like people following you, and then those followers will purchase stuff from your online shop. So it's just like kind of a vicious cycle of, self-promotion essentially. I wanted to talk about the quality of shows. And by that, I mean, what is more fruitful economically, right? So if we look at like a show like Origins Game Fair, which is a local show to me, I made $4K, which is on the lower end of my average. However, because it's local and I don't have a hotel fee, I don't have a flight fee, I just walk in.
I am here!
All I really have is the table fee and food and stuff like that. It only cost me about $800 to be at that show. So it's a net profit of about 3.2K, which is ratio-wise pretty good. And then if we look at a show like Anime NYC, which is in New York City, a very expensive city, New York prices have gone up in the last couple of years. I think hotels have almost doubled from 2019. I also only made $4K at that show, but it cost me almost $3K to be there. So I'm only bringing home $1K, and then it's all the extra time and travel and expenses. And if we look further at Anime NYC and compare it to a show like New York City Comic Con, a show that I made $13K, even though it's in the same exact location and has all the same expenses, $4K versus $13K is a big difference. So that might inform where I'm going to put my time and effort in. Where my work might not resonate with like anime fans because I don't really do a lot of anime work, that might be a reason that the demographic there just doesn't suit my art style and thus doesn't equal sales, right? And although I'm not a comic book artist either, my work is priced a little higher, and I think my demographic for the people who buy my work is a little older, and at Comic Cons the crowd is typically a bit older than an anime show, so that might inform some of the reasons on why I do better at that show, and also inform what type of shows I want to do in the future, right? So these are definitely things to consider when you're picking shows. Another thing I kind of wanted to briefly mention is, I feel very privileged to be in the position I am and really lucky to have the success I've had in the last couple of years. Cons kind of were the way that I pulled myself out of like a bad situation. I was, working minimum wage, working way too many hours and not able to really focus on my own art and my own like passions, but starting to do conventions and kind of getting better at them and figuring out like how to, you know, make that a profitable experience. You know, the first show I did, I still lost money, but I learned a lot. So I definitely recommend conventions to like newer unknown artists. I think it's a great way to kind of enter the space. Well, that's the video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope it gave you some ideas to help you along on your art journey. And if you would like to see more business related videos like this one, let me know. And if you're feeling super extra generous, like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it.